This section is aimed at providing the user with a foundation in relief carving, focusing on new methods, key techniques, tips and advice that help relax constraints and remove perceived difficulty. The pre-modelling section is used as a form of learning by doing. By creating a model of the project you wish to carve, it helps you to visualise what you have to make and the steps required to arrive at your final solution. Relief carving consists of 6 stages. 1. Outlining, 2. Setting in, 3. Layering, 4. Detail, 5. Final detail, 6. Finishing. Each will be covered in detail later in this presentation. For this project you need your design template, acetate sheets, permanent markers, plasticine, preferably 2 different colours, Stanley knife, bevel edge chisels, straight gouges, toothbrush and 50mm material, preferably basswood if possible. Before we begin, we need to transfer the design using carbon paper. In order to do this, you need to place the carbon paper on the workpiece, ensuring that the darker side is against the workpiece. Place your required design on top of the carbon paper and use masking tape to secure this to the piece. Once you have the design transferred onto the piece, it can help if you colour in the areas where there is a difference in thickness or in height. For the modelling section, we'll be using plasticine to create the layers of the project. It can be hard to visualise and carve something without being able to touch it or see it. Through modelling the plasticine, we can create an aid to help us with our visualisation when we are carving. To begin modelling, roll out the plasticine to the required depth. You can use a depth gauge or a steel ruler to ensure that you have the correct depth. Next, trace your design onto the acetate using a permanent marker, and then you place this acetate over the first layer of plasticine and cut around the shape using your Stanley knife. Complete the same process for the top layer by applying the acetate and cutting out the required shape using the Stanley knife again. Shape and mould the plasticine with your hands, craft knife and chisels to get the required shape. Finally, reapply the template to ensure accuracy of key detail, and finally add on the finishing detail, for example the ears, the eyes and the hair. Once you've completed transferring the design onto the workpiece, we are nearly ready to begin. The first stage in relief carving is outlining. So when beginning to mark out the piece, it's important to begin by marking the 2 different depths that will be used in the workpiece. In this case, the depths are 4mm and 8mm respectively. For this, you can use the marking gauge to mark in the required depths. The next stage is setting in. Before any carving chisels or gouges are used, it is important to use a Stanley knife or carving knife to outline around the required design. For this, ensure that the piece is secure to the table using either clamps or a tightened device. When outlining the shape you want to keep, ensure that you have a stopping cut before you score the line so as not to overrun or damage the area that you do want to keep. The next stage is layering. Begin roughing out the background using a straight gouge. As you work down, recut the stop cut as required. Continue to remove material from the background until you have reached the required depth. At this stage, you should just be left with the outline of the bear and have the required depth reached. Once you have this stage complete, you should be left with the required shape. All that needs to be done now is to round the edges to give the bear a better 3D effect. To complete the model and mark in the very final detail to give the fur effect to the bear, you can use a carving knife or else a V-gouge. Lastly, sand down the piece and, if necessary, apply a finish.